Good morning, y'all, and welcome to Running from 40. So, this morning I headed to my local track and decided that I'm going to run a half marathon right around my MAF heart rate. That MAF heart rate, as many of you know, is the heart rate where you're best developing your aerobic system. There's more to it than that, but that's sort of a simple way to think about it. So anyhow, I'm going to be trying not to go over 140, maybe 145 beats per minute for my heart rate. Let's talk about the balanced runner and what it means to be a balanced runner, why that's a benefit to find balance as a runner, and to explain how I've arrived at a place where I think it's something worth talking about. So this is not something that's come out of nowhere, but it's something that I'm seeking for myself and think could benefit y'all too. So anyway, I'll be checking in every mile right now. I'm just on warm up, and then we'll keep going. So first of all, if you want to run at a optimal effort to help build your aerobic capacity without burning yourself out or getting injured, the MAF heart rate is a great way to do that. It's typically very conservative. There are more precise ways, but this is so easy. Most people can take this MAF formula of 180 minus your age, and then there are some other parameters that you can consider: your fitness level, how often you get sick, if you need to lose weight, etc. But for the most part, most people are going to be right around 180 beats per minute minus their age. So if you're 40, you'll probably be running right around 140 beats per minute for a heart rate. All right, so we got 2 miles down, about 11 to go. Now, why would I want to run a half marathon at such a low heart rate? Well, before we get into the balance side of things, I want to say that if you subscribe to this MAF method, you'll get some really good progress right at the beginning, which is kind of to be expected with most pursuits, right? You don't know anything about it, and then you learn really rapidly at the beginning often. You improve from being somebody who knows nothing about something or can't do something at all to somebody that's beginning to establish competency. But after those first few months, and this is different for everyone, you know, if you've already been a runner, your progress might look different because you're at a different point. But I discovered that when training at a lower heart rate, you get to a point where your improvements, your progress will plateau. And then you wonder how, is this really not working? How do I level up, right? If the goal is to get faster at a lower heart rate, how does that happen? And that's where I'd say volume comes in. It's, you might ratchet things up to 20, maybe 30 miles a week of running. But I would say there's only so much toothpaste in the tube to squeeze out at that volume. So increasing your volume, smart way, and I do have a video on that. But increasing your volume and still running at that low heart rate will put you in a good position to continue to get gains in speed and efficiency at that lower heart rate. And it's also great just to be able to run a long distance. I mean, 13.1 miles, when you can make that an easy training run because they're doing it at a very modest effort, is great. It's a great way to get in miles. So then this sort of hurdle of increasing your miles, and I don't at all say put a bunch of long runs in your week, you know, everything has to be tempered with a well thought out approach. But at the end of the day, running at a low heart rate for a long distance, you know, 1 day a week, can be a great way to get comfortable with that distance, to up your volume, and to get some of those performance gains that you may be looking for. All right, well, I'm dropping my shirt off because I'm getting a bit warm. There's my aid station back there with my Element electrolyte drink, which I do highly recommend. My heart rate has been higher, and that's really because I've been running less. The last few weeks, I haven't felt, I think my last month plus, I haven't run over 30 miles in a week. Oh, by the way, we're 3 miles down on the 4th mile, and I'm feeling good. But I've been having a bit of a hard time keeping my heart rate as low as I want it to. Anyhow, I started to realize that I was improving aerobically, no doubt. My running economy was getting better. But for me, I realized that was coming at the expense of my movement and recovery. Two things that I preach on pretty heavily. So how did this manifest itself? Well, first of all, so I was hitting like 45 to 50 miles a week for quite a while. And that's not a ton of miles for people who are really into running and run marathons. But I was maximizing it. I was spending the time that I did have putting in miles, pursuing miles sort of at all costs. Now I was paying attention to my heart rate for the most part. Although I do think I pushed the intensity a little too much. But I realized that my body was sore and tired at that mileage. And it actually showed up more acutely in my left hip, which has bothered me for a while, but it just hasn't gotten better. And on certain days would really inhibit my ability to run well and even my desire to run. So interesting enough, when I was at the Freedoms Run, check out the vlog if you haven't, there was a PT there, and I started to talk to her a little bit, and she got me on their table and put me through some exercises, and turns out on the left side where my hip is compromised and sore, that my gluteus medius is really weak. And that was interesting to me because I lack in so many areas, but I never thought strength was an area of concern. I've always felt that movement, flexibility, that sort of stuff was where my greatest deficiencies were. But it turns out you can have a weakness and not realize it because you're recruiting and strengthening other muscles. But this gluteus medius is used a lot in stabilization and balance, and you can have some hip dip going on without that even being obvious. By the way, I think I've run 4 miles and I'm on my 5th mile now. I lose track, which is probably for the best. All right, so 5 miles down on mile 6, feeling good. You know, another negative thing that I was struggling with was I was comparing myself to others. Not necessarily thinking I should be where they're at, but because they're at where they're at, I should be here relative to them. And that's just fraught with issues, right? We don't know. We're all running our own race. We all have our own story. We all have our own set of circumstances that are somewhat unique to us. At least when you drill down to greater depths. And so you have to run your race. Even comparing yourself, not just to others, but to where you were previously, maybe. That's also sort of a recipe for disaster, because you might think, well, I used to run this pace at this effort. But in this journey, there are peaks and there are valleys. And so it's important to keep that in mind. You should always, I think, be endeavoring to be in the moment you're in, to recognize the limitations and the potential of that moment, and work with what you got. And you're in it for the long haul. All right, 6 miles down, and we'll be hitting the halfway point on the 7th mile here. You know, it's not just the negative things, the failures, so to speak, that have caused me to reevaluate and seek greater balance, but there's also a sense of what I'm leaving on the table by not balancing out my training better, by not focusing more on optimizations and recovery. And I would say substantially more strength and core workouts. I've really been skimping on that stuff. And even, you know, a lot of that stuff, the benefits seem to tarry at times. And so patience is so important. But because we're used to instant gratification, or we often gravitate toward that, we neglect to consider that hard work, sticking to something, being patient, the benefits of that, the results, they don't come right away. But oftentimes when they do come, they'll come all at once. And you'd be like, where did this come from? I'm improving a ton. Well, it's because you finally tapped into things you were neglecting. And all the pieces are now in place. And you're seeing that improvement, and it feels great. Well, it didn't come out of nowhere. It came from the discipline, the hard work, and the persistence and patience that you continue to stick to, even when you didn't feel like it. All right, so we are over the 7 mile mark, past the 7 mile mark, and I'm feeling good, feeling really good, which is a blessing. So in terms of movement, what does that look like? I would say I'm trying to be more intentional, especially with my strength and core. Up until now, it's been fiddling when I can, if I can. So now I'm taking 1 day a week and I'm cutting my running back substantially in that day and doing an actual focused strength workout. I'm doing push-ups, pull-ups, squats, kettlebell swings, all that sort of stuff. And then I'm trying to be more structured and disciplined with my work days. I do work from home, which is a great blessing and a privilege. Very fortunate to be able to do that. So recently I've started implementing a Pomodoro timer. Basically work focused for 25 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break. And so I have a number of edifying things that I try to fill those breaks with. One area of focus is just more movement, balance, core, And then also just try to make all of these things more a part of my daily life, the little moment-to-moment areas that we often neglect and think that they're insignificant, but they add up. You know, one corollary to more strength training, cutting back one day of running, seeking greater balance is less of a concern. I say less of a concern about volume. You know, I think I'll be very happy for now, at least, getting around 40 miles a week if I'm not training for a race. But even then, not having it set as this hard and fast rule, oh, this week, I gotta hit X miles. I want to listen to my body a little better. And that transitions as well into the idea of recovery. Some people may laugh if they hear me say that I need to improve or optimize my recovery more, because I'm probably known as somebody who takes recovery seriously. Serious about getting good sleep, ice baths, eating healthy, being judicious with my training for the most part. But not only is there always room for improvement, we're always learning. You know, running is diagnostic. And so I want to be, again, more consistent with the ice baths. And I'm also learning more about sleep. And I heard it said recently, you know, sleep, it was Andrew Huberman. He said, you know, sleep is not a one and done thing. You figure it out and you're set. It's like exercise. It's a lifelong pursuit. And in the context of running, you are definitely hurting yourself if your sleep is not being considered. By the way, I'm 8 miles in and I'm feeling good still. A little tired, maybe a little sore, but nothing major. It's to be expected. I haven't gone over like 6.5 miles in the past month, I don't think so. But anyway, yeah, feel good. And well past the halfway mark. So I'm running most of it at 140 to 145 beats per minute heart rate. All right, 9 miles in, still feeling good. I'm actually getting a little faster on my paces at the same heart rate as I go on. So that tells me that I'm not pushing myself too much at all. And then as I get above that heart rate, a lot of times it's when I'm talking. So that's encouraging. A lot of times, I think when we're talking about balance, it's important to keep balanced. And it's easy to lose that balance, ironically. I think a lot of times when we talk about balance, what comes to mind is the gentler, easier side of things. And I would say a lot of times that's probably what athletes need. We're probably erring on the side of too much, too fast. However, you know, you might be asking yourself, maybe not, but I know I am at least. I've set some pretty audacious goals. Am I going to dial those back? You know, I want to run a 2:45 marathon or a 17:11 5K or a 5-minute mile. No, not at all. Balance means that I'm not pursuing those goals to the exclusion of the low intensity recovery side of things. The gentle, the easy stuff has its place. And also when we talk about easy, you know, I talk about an easy run, and usually easy there is synonymous with low heart rate, low intensity. But it's not necessarily easy. Actually, it requires a lot of patience. The monotony can get to you right now. If anything, I just feel the monotony of running a longer distance. All right, 10 miles in, 5K left to go. We got this. Heart rate's staying in a good place, and my pace is doing fine. It's still a little faster than when I started out, so yay. You know, it's also important when thinking about sacrifice. and I'm speaking from personal experience, that you don't make that question all about you and just equate sacrifice with, are you willing to put in the hard work? Are you willing to wake up early? Are you willing to not eat your favorite food? That's a pretty shallow view of sacrifice. And I say that as somebody who needs that reminder. A more pressing question, when you ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice to achieve your goals? I'm a husband and a father. Am I willing to sacrifice that? Am I willing to be an absent husband and father if it means achieving my goals? Absolutely not, right? Let's think about eating healthier. Maybe you want to eat nothing suboptimal. You're convinced. Some online guru has convinced you can never let anything pass your lips that is suboptimal in its nutritional value. Okay, that's fine. And I'm not judging that. But for so many of us, are you willing in that situation to offend your mom at Thanksgiving because you won't eat her food? Maybe you are. But you certainly have to consider that kind of stuff. Because life is part of being a balanced runner, is realizing that life is about more than running. It's about more than reaching some goals you've set up for yourself. It's about more than you and more than me. So seeking balance isn't just this happy and healthy thing, but it's also sobering, because it makes us really take a step back and look within and consider, what are we doing this for? All the way back to one of my first videos, why do we run? Is it for accolades and goals? So we can feel better than our past selves or better than others? Is it arbitrary? All right, 11 miles down, about 2 to go. Got a little bit of a side stitch on my left side, which tends to happen to me. It's funny. It seems to be independent of how fit I am, where I'm at in a run. But I have noticed for me that practicing something called rhythmic breathing tends to help. So what I'll do is I'll breathe in for 4 steps, and then I'll exhale for 3 steps. And what that does is that alternates the foot that you're striking on. And that limits that antagonism, that asymmetric antagonism on your diaphragm with the impact of stepping down on just one foot. So, all right, 12 miles down. We got this. That last mile can be so psychologically difficult, I should say. My body's fine, but there's something in your mind, especially when you're just doing this for, just a Saturday morning run, to say, that's fine, you just did 12 miles. You've already done more than you've done in a long time. But as long as you're not hurting, you're not overdoing it, then I think it's some good psychological training to press on through. So anyhow, got about a mile left. Let's finish this out. All right, just hit 13 miles. Less than 1/10 of a mile to go. I'm not gonna lie, I feel tired. My legs are heavy. Almost there. Just over 2 hours. Again, it's all at MAF heart rate. There we go. It's a wrap. But that was fun. Kinda. I feel good. I'm glad to get out and put some more miles in than I have been. what am I going to do now? I'm going to go recover. And rest and recovery doesn't just look like laying on the couch and watching TV. I'm not going to be doing that at all. It just means not doing high intensity stuff, treating your body right, going home and getting the nutrition you need. I'll probably shower. A warm shower sounds nice because I'll say a hot shower sounds nice because it's actually the temperature has dropped since I've been here, which is interesting. So I think a cold front's coming in. Just grab my stuff here. And then if I feel up to it, I'll do some breathing and a cold plunge and just enjoy the day with my family, because they're more important than running, believe it or not. So what's more important than running for you? That's part of finding that balance. So anyway, I appreciate you joining me this morning, and until next time, take care, y'all.